Welcome, everyone. The legalization of marijuana is changing how many people perceive pot as well as who might use it. In fact, the fastest growing consumers of marijuana are senior citizens. Our producer, Leslie Marcus, investigated what's driving this new wave of senior stoners.
This is Laguna Woods, one of the biggest retirement communities in the nation. We're going to go on a little field trip to the marijuana dispensary. Candace, you organize this entire event every month.
Seniors are definitely our largest growing population of cannabis consumers. The tour that we provide, the service, is both for medical marijuana patients, so they get easy ride to the dispensary and also get to do it in the comfort of their peers.
Do you want a puff? Yes, I do. How can people educate their parents on the benefits of marijuana and erase the stigma that's been here for so many years?
There's a lot of good websites and research online to get. Harder in the senior community because they grew up with the stigma. The younger generation, not so much. But the seniors, they still think they might be doing something immoral or illegal.
While this group of seniors is enjoying their cannabis experience, the medical science is still hazy. We don't know the exact effect marijuana has on health conditions such as dementia, and there are some concerns that cannabis may increase risk of falls and interact with other medications. Joy, tell me your story.
I have Parkinson's.
Okay.
And I've just been diagnosed with this about 3 years. And I was having a hard time enjoying the things I like to do, ceramics, sewing. So I was looking for something that would help me. And so it was suggested that I give this a shot, and it does help.
We have arrived at the marijuana dispensary. Let's go check it out. Pamela, you're 73, and you work at the marijuana dispensary. Tell me how that happened.
I came in my first time here, and I looked around and I go, I love this place. I want to get a job here.
From cookies to protein bars, we know edibles are all the rage.
When you're cooking with cannabis, you're extracting the trichomes.
You like to teach people how to cook with marijuana themselves.
I do. I like to give consumers the power to make their own edibles, exactly the kind of edibles they need in exactly the dose they need in their own home.
How do you feel right now?
I have a really bad back. The pain I have is all the way down my leg.
And did you used to take pharmaceutical drugs for your pain?
Yeah.
What kind?
Opioids.
So do you like the vape now? Are you feeling it?
I feel good.
It helps me sleep and it keeps me from grinding my teeth. So it makes me feel better. I've been smoking almost daily since 62. I mean 1962, not when I was 62. I really love to get high.
We just left the marijuana shop. We're here with Solange, and she got some products for your pain.
I have a very bad back. With fuse, I've tried everything. This is my last stop for pain.
What do you think the key is to destigmatize marijuana?
People have to realize that using medical cannabis is the same as any kind of medicine, you know, that people should not be overusing, should not be driving when they're under the medication. You know, this really is a safe way to medicate yourself in the comfort of your own home.
Our producer, Leslie, now joins us.
I think when Dr. Stork first introduced this topic, there was an audible gasp from the audience. I think people just didn't even realize that this is a trend. So tell us about that. Tell us about these retirement communities and how they're making marijuana actually accessible to their residents.
Well, to put it bluntly, had to throw that in there. These seniors are really empowering themselves, educating themselves on cannabis, and becoming their own advocates for their use. Now, none of them told me that this was a cure-all, but they did tell me that it drastically improved their quality of life, and I think that's important. They told me they just wanted to be happy. So whatever it was, if they were substituting opioids, you know, if they had anxiety, different things that ailed them, this was helping them.
Can I ask you what percentage of the people on that bus were using it more so recreationally as opposed to medically? You mentioned curing ailments, but I'm assuming a few were on the bus because, you know what, they just enjoy smoking marijuana.
And a lot of them did that, admit that to me. They told me that, hey, I like the feeling of getting high. It makes me feel happy. I have anxiety. With old age, you know, I get depressed. This helps me. So I'd say maybe about 40%.
Wow.
there's also historically kind of a stigma with seniors and marijuana use. What are your observations about how that's changing?
I think the smoke is clearing when it comes to the stigma. And to tell you the truth, these seniors are spearheading that. There is a new cannabis culture, and they're embracing it. I have to tell you that a few of them didn't want to be on camera, and one of them told me that they couldn't let their husband know where they were going every month in the country. So there is still a stigma, but it's getting a lot better, and people are embracing this as a possible option.
Did they comment that the use of the medical marijuana has helped them decrease the use of other medications? And, you know, we as docs know that all medications have side effects, and a lot of times people don't realize it, and sometimes those side effects are even more of an issue as you get older.
Exactly. And they did tell me, I think the biggest theme in that bus was, I was on opioids, and this, I can get off those opioids. I can live a normal life. I don't feel like I have to be in my house and feel dizzy and intoxicated. They just said that they were able to improve their quality of life. Some of them were just on CBD oils, so they weren't getting high.
And again, the CBD oils do not give you that effect of the THC. I think all of us doctors are intrigued by the possibility of, if you can move someone off of an opiate medication and potentially substitute in CBD, for instance, it's a huge win. I do want to quickly bring into the conversation the Chief Medical Director of a medical marijuana clinic, Dr. Bonnie Goldstein. You prescribe medical marijuana. And Dr. Orton raised some really interesting points of, when might you be able to substitute a more dangerous medication with one, if appropriately prescribed, marijuana could provide some benefits. How often are you seeing this in your clinic?
So in my practice, I'm absolutely seeing patients get off of prescription medications. Opioids is the #1. Other pain medications like nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories, anxiety medications, sleeping pills for sure. Also other things that for some patients, they're on multiple medications for certain conditions, and what's happening is they're able to at least back down to maybe 1 or 2 instead of 3 or 4. One of my patients even called cannabis the one-stop shop because she was on pain medicine, anxiety medication, depression medication, and sleeping pills. And she was able, at the age of 27, she was on all of those medications and was able to get off.
Specifically in the elderly, I'm just curious, are there more concerns about, say, side effects, or do you have to think about the dosing differently if this is something a senior is truly considering?
We have to be very careful with dosing, and the general rule of thumb in the cannabis industry is start low and go slow. Start very low dose and titrate up. But what I also recommend, which many people don't realize, is that there's a lot of combination products out there that have both CBD and THC, and studies show that they work better when they're together. So not all of one or all of the other. And what happened in California is we kind of went one way towards the THC as medical cannabis moved on, and now CBD is being reintroduced. Combination products allow the CBD to buffer a lot of the unwanted side effects of THC, but still help with the underlying medical condition.
Should seniors who are already on other medications, are there specific interactions they should be aware of?
Yes, there can be interactions, and certainly so things like blood pressure medication. If you take too much cannabis on top of your blood pressure medication, your blood pressure can go down, and you are at a risk of fall, especially if you're getting up out of bed to use the restroom or something like that. We also know that blood thinners can interact with some of these medications, and many elderly are on those. And so it's always good, if you're on other medication, to have a physician who understands cannabis to at least go over medications with you so that you can make sure you can avoid those kinds of interactions.
Let me raise that red flag, because that is the one concern I had watching this segment, and my one concern as I've seen the evolution of the marijuana industry rapidly growing over the last few years. It's that I do believe that marijuana has a valid place in medical treatment. We will only learn more and more about how to dose. More doctors will specialize as you do. But then there's this other side of it where it's just one big party. How do we bridge that gap where people, all of us, take marijuana seriously as a medical treatment?
Well, I think for most people, you know, if you overdose on cannabis, it's very psychologically uncomfortable. It's trippy, what I call it. And I tell people, once you do that, you're never going to go back there again. Most people know how much is too much, and they usually figure it out. But in general, I think that some of the new regulations coming out are good regulations. Edibles should not have 1,000 milligrams in them. It should be limited to a smaller amount, because some people see a candy bar package, and you even showed it up on your screen, 180 milligrams. That's many, many doses for most people. That is not, and most people see a candy bar and say, oh, I'll eat the whole thing. So unfortunately, without regulations, it got a little bit crazy, but I think the regulations are going to help, especially with the edibles. In general, with the other types of compounds that are out there, like topicals or inhaling, most people are able to regulate it and figure out what works best.
And I'm glad you said that.
Edibles with kids and adults too. Adults like their sweets.
Because you both seemed concerned that they were lowering the dosage amount, but 10 milligrams of THC is a significant dose for someone who's naive to it. I mean, I would argue that that's maybe too much. If you're trying, you know, that's a big dose. So to me, that's a good development. And I can tell you expressed some concerns from the elderly that they were putting that requirement in place.
It sounds like the seniors you were discussing know how to break it off and save it.
A lot of it told me it was trial and error themselves.
So for our viewers, how did they find, like, how do your patients find you? Where do they go for resources on this so they can safely think about incorporating this if this is something they're open to?
Well, most people are going online and looking to see who might specialize in this. There's just about a medical cannabis conference almost every week somewhere in the United States where you're going to find doctors that are learning about this. It needs to be in the toolbox of every doctor now, because if you're practicing, you know, family practice and you're writing prescriptions for all kinds of different medications, this is just another tool in the toolbox to be able to talk to your patients about. And again, doctors are free to talk to their patients about medical cannabis as long as they don't misrepresent anything. I think many doctors think they'll put their license at risk if they talk to their patients about this, but they will not. We are free to speak about it with our patients.
I will say, Leslie, you've outdone yourself. This was the...
Fascinating. We all learned so much.
Of all the investigations you've done, this was the highlight.
That was good.
Really, really good job. Dr. Goldstein, thank you so much for being with us. We'll be right back.